Now, as a professor, I've looked at thousands of dissertations and I've noticed some major mistakes that you're just not being made aware of. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 6 biggest mistakes I'm consistently seeing in these dissertations, and towards the end, I'll tell you the number 1 thing that students don't realise impacts their marks. So let's begin where it can initially go wrong, and that's right here in the idea generation stage, which is just so important because if you get this wrong at the start and how it's generated and proposed, it can be difficult to recover and then produce a good dissertation. Now, the first and the biggest mistake that I see the most is that ideas aren't really taken from the field of studies. So what happens is the student starts with a random idea and then you attempt to try and connect it to literature, and that's just so hard to do. But because the idea isn't born out of or originally situated within academic research, it's then going to be really difficult to place it within the necessary supportive literature and enable you to justify it and make the research relevant. Now, here's what you have to do to stop this. Instead, opt for reverse engineering. Start with a group of studies in an area with varying research questions on a theme and think how you can replicate them, imitate them, but with your own slight twist that changes it in some way. Then your dissertation will be sculpted and supported by all these similar studies, and you won't be going wrong at the beginning from word go. Oh yeah, and before we move on, there's a second mistake that I see, which is an unwillingness to let go of an idea, even when it's failing or wrong and you've been advised against it. For some reason, students get really attached to ideas, they put the effort in, or they don't want to start again, but really you must let go and start again if it's the best thing for you. If it's not working, get rid of it and change. Now onto the proposal, which I've seen thousands of in my time, so listen to what I've got to say on this. The main fault that I see at this stage is that students just haven't moved their ideas along enough at this stage. Now, I don't know about you, but I was always a Johnny I'll do it later merchant, and I never got the studying done when I should have done, especially the writing. And I think, if I was honest, I think my work suffered a lot because of this. There's some things that you just can't do at the last stage. However, you've just got to view your proposal like it's its own standalone piece of work that is judged and assessed. And so many students either underestimate how advanced it needs to be or just aren't ready to put the effort in at this early stage. So my big advice for you at this stage is put the effort in early. It really pays off. And this is an insider's view. I just really never see a student who does an amazing proposal and then does really terrible in their dissertation. And this just confirms how important it is to be doing well at this early stage. Because if you have this underlying structure set in place at the beginning, you're well on your way. So be that person. And here we are amongst some of my literature at home, and I'm going to give it a quick tidy up and put some books away as I'm talking about literature reviews for you. Now, from my experience, there's 2 big things that I can help you with regarding the literature review. Now, the first biggest sin is when you're just presenting the field and you're not critically engaging in a dialogue with that literature. Example of this might be a subject like CSR. So if a student was doing a literature review on this subject, they might just start presenting the key theories of CSR within that field, but they might not actually be related to the actual dissertation itself. You might not be using those theories, so why go through it and just present them? Is that a red or a pink? I think we'll go pink. So my key advice is just present and discuss literature that is particular and supporting and justifying your actual research. You know, don't just review theories in a detached way. Just draw that connection to your research all the time. This happens most when I see first drafts and students are still coming to terms with the literature. You know, you might as well try and save yourself some time and be critical from the starting pistol from the beginning. And not being critical enough is the second thing that I really want to flag up regarding literature reviews, because this is the key to getting a good mark. And I've got a video on how to do critical analysis if you want to have a look at that at some point. This is about more than just presenting ideas. You are demonstrating an academic skill of discussing, evaluating, positioning, extending, synthesizing. You know, in this way, you're carving out active relationships between your work and studies that have gone before. All a literature review is something to substantiate and justify why you're doing this research. It lays the platform.
A good methodology is like a good sandwich.
Now, what makes a sandwich stand out? Often it's those added bits, the extra layers, the secret sauce, which just make it taste that bit yummier. So my advice for your methodology is to sprinkle on that little something extra, which will make the difference to the marker. And there's regular sandwiches, like just basic ham, and we all know what they taste like. It takes no skill, no knowledge, no ability. There's standard methods for doing all of these things, for doing interviews, for collecting data, for doing questionnaires. But you can always jazz them up and make the marker think, hello, what's going on here? This looks like a bit of extra work's gone into it. Make it more robust, make it more contemporary, make it more innovative perhaps. And the method section is your place where you can show off all these choice cuts and designs. You can see that people have just put more effort into it. It immediately signals to us that there's just more to inspect and see. To show the marker that you've done something more, and it makes it count, and ultimately it just makes something taste yummier. And as an experienced supervisor, I also want to emphasize the overall management of yourself and the organization of the dissertation. This is really important. My experience shows me that when dissertations failed, often it's not people's ability that is lacking, but just their overall personal management. Got some major mooing going on in the background. Hello, hello. I think we'd agree with a cow. A key part in doing well is just looking after yourself, protecting your sanity, getting out there in the sunshine, which is why I've come out here, to get away from the office, because we get so immersed in our research that we just forget the world outside. So to do well, it's also about how you feel, right? That you've got the energy to perform, to actually put the hours in of studying. How are you going to get up in the morning and go to the library for the 10th time in a row? Only through having the right mental attitude that you're going to be able to do it and therefore succeed in your dissertation. They agree with me. So here's the number one thing that students either just forget or they don't realize, and it can have a major impact on the overall dissertation grade. And this is that they just aren't familiar enough with how dissertations are actually marked, and they're not following the marking criteria. Dissertation isn't just judged as an overall piece of work. Markers use quite a strict allocation of marks in the criteria that they are using. And this breaks down the dissertation into smaller component parts. You have to remember that dissertations always have a second marker who will approach the dissertation completely blind, and all that they will have to go off is a strict criteria, and they'll be looking for these things, and your dissertation will be judged against them. You know, I've had experiences as a second marker countless times where I've approached a student's dissertation and I'm really upset and disappointed because things will just be missing and I won't be able to award the marks for it. They might have done a crazily good literature review, but they've just been no attempt at the aims and objectives, and therefore they've just lost easy marks. So make sure as a student that you are hitting all these different criteria. Find out what the university or your department is expecting you to demonstrate in each of these criteria for the level of mark that you're aiming to get. Now, what will link all of these categories of the dissertation and what all markers will be looking for is a high level of evaluation and criticality throughout. And I've got videos here which go into great detail about how to be critical in your assignments. Whoa, steady on, that's a bit close.